Welcome to Jesus Cartel, where I have interrupted Clay's thinking to start the episode so that he couldn't have an opportunity to come up with a solid answer in time. That's the hope, at least.
Yeah, so I asked him, I said, what's the get to know you segment question? And he told me that it was going to be favorite sports movies. And I said, well, okay, what's my favorite sports movie? And then he clapped. Oh, man, I was wanting you to answer that one for me.
I'm going to tell you mine in a bit.
Yeah.
First, what's been going on with you?
You know what? First off, I've been at work. And
The only one who's been at work.
I've been at work. I haven't been at home losing 15 pounds with the stomach virus. So, no, man. Elena graduated with her MBA on Saturday. It was amazing. And I thought that was really cool. And, getting to see my daughter do that. And then we had a big party, afterwards. We had like 70 people showed up. We actually had, 5-6 of the Skull household showed up. I can let y'all wonder which one played hooky. And so they had a great time until they got sick a day or two later. But so we had a great time at the party. And then Sunday, two really cool things happened that I got to witness firsthand. Is number one, Annalise led worship for the first time that she's ever sang and played at the same time in front of people. Thought that was really cool. Her and Cooper and Blake led worship. She played keyboard and sang. Blake played acoustic guitar, and Cooper played the cajon, the drum box, and he saw it on Sunday and was able to play it, so that worked out good. And then I got to preach to about 17 or 18 people who aren't regularly in church. So on top of being able to preach to, people that are regularly in church, I was able to preach to several people that aren't regularly in church, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
A lot of times that doesn't happen that way. You're preaching to a lot of the same people, in the same place, but this time it was different. So I had a great weekend. Everything went real well. I heard you were sick.
Yeah, so first off, the rest of my family was at Elena's, I guess you would call it celebration, for successfully graduating again. I feel like we've went to 100 Russell graduation parties at this point.
Yeah, so she's 2 degrees hotter.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and so 6 out of the last 7 years, we've had graduation parties. Now, here's what's kind of sad about that. 6 out of the last 7 years, we've had graduation parties. Annalise's high school, college, and master's. Elena's high school, college, and master's. What's difficult is during that entire run, Cooper hasn't graduated one time at all from anything.
Wow.
Right? So the Russell family has graduated 6 out of 7 times in the last year, and Cooper's been none of those.
Yeah.
That's kind of disappointing.
It's a lot of pressure too.
Yeah,
he better graduate fast. Otherwise, leave him out of the will. That's what I would do.
If he keeps bringing his phone to school, he's going to have to graduate fast because he's going to get it spelled. But it's what it is.
But yeah, so 5 of the 6 Skulls were at the celebration. I was coaching a baseball game in North Webster, which is 2.5 hours from here. Heck of a drive. But it was actually on a field that I won a playoff game as a player.
Okay.
And so I didn't realize North Webster was a combination of several schools, kind of like Franklin Parish. That was complete news to me. But one of the schools that it absorbed was Spring Hill, who was in our classification when I was at Menard. And we played them one year in the playoffs. And so I actually had a really vivid high school baseball memory from that field. Yeah. When I was at Menard, we had a very strict no pop-ups policy. It was very well known. Our catcher, Casey Juneau, hit a go-ahead home run that won us that playoff game, and he towered it 300 feet in the air, not distance-wise, but high. And so after the game, we all ran poles for that fly ball that was hit. And it was the most enjoyable poles you'll ever run because they won us the game. But nonetheless, it was on that field, and it was cool to get to be there again and kind of get to experience that. And we 10-runned them every game. We played them 3 times. We 10-runned them all 3 times. Our team's doing really well right now. Got a really tough week next week. Got a couple of difficult games to finish this week out, but next week's going to be real tough for us. Be some challenging games. We'll have to play our absolute best to win. But the very next day after the party, my 3-year-old got sick, which I've not ruled out a targeted attack from that party. Just to be clear, no one is innocent until I've deemed them so. And then my 5-year-old got sick, and then my 1-year-old, and then me. And so Courtney and Aria are the last 2, and last time we got the stomach bug, Courtney and Aria dodged it. I'm not exactly sure how, but I'm thankful for it, and I hope that they successfully dodge it again this time.
It's not hard to see who's saved in the family and who's not. I mean, it is what it is. So.
Yeah.
They have the Lord, y'all don't. It is what it is.
Well, if it's based on merit and good behavior, it's no wonder Isla got it first. She is a handful. But we made it through it thus far, and we still all love each other, and so that's all good news. But that's the most sick I've been in over 10 years by far. Normally when I get sick, I may throw up a couple of times, but I'm fine, and we just kind of keep rolling. That was not the case this go round. I've been down for 2 days, and that's unusual, but I'm feeling great today. And I was telling my guys this morning, oddly, I feel extremely rested because I don't rest much. And so there's not a lot of stop for me. And so though being sick wasn't fun, I do think that my body took advantage of the still. Because I don't get a whole lot of it. And so, which does bring us to the sponsor of the week, Little Debbie, which is personally responsible for any of the calories that I did manage to take in over the last couple of days, and the very short windows where I felt like I could hold down food. That was my go-to, and several successful ventures between fudge rounds and oatmeal cream pies. And so we appreciate Little Debbie for her continued sacrifice in the war against evil people.
Well, I did get an email from one of her high-up representatives, and she was also very glad that happened with you, because I've been training a man that quit eating Little Debbie's, and he ate so many or consumed so many that it was really causing it caused problems when he quit. So when with their budget and all that and everything, so by you coming and taking care of that slack and keeping their light bill on and keeping them afloat, seeing how Pruitt's not eating them anymore, then they were very happy to sponsor the Jesus Cartel.
Yeah, fantastic. I do love them. Yeah. I do love them, and I will happily take that bullet for somebody. But you are right. I did lose like 5 more pounds, and that's not ideal. I did not need to lose those 5 pounds. But lo and behold, here we are. And so we will steal them back slowly but surely. Anyways, yeah.
So life is good. I think we told everybody that we got the CARF accreditation, right?
Yeah, we did.
All right. Well, now we have this big, nice, fancy certificate that we're going to hang up and everything. We've still just been too busy to really do anything with that. And we're supposed to advertise and put it out there, and even put it on our personal Facebook yet. Yeah. But we've just been too busy. Well, it's kind of been shorthanded. But now that we're not as shorthanded, then maybe we can find some time to be able to do that and put that out there, because it's a great accomplishment, not just for us, but for Fresh Start and all our people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the interesting part of the whole CARF situation is that I think even still, having accomplished it already, I think you and I are still just a little bit naive to just how big of a deal it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they continuously told us, throughout the whole process before we ever like what a significant thing this was. And then when they got here, they were saying that, you know, this is currently optional in Louisiana, but it's not going to be optional much longer. And so we're very much ahead of some things that are probably coming down the road later. And so, you know, to just be able to voluntarily hold yourself to a high standard, I think that speaks volumes, because anybody can hold themselves to a standard that they're forced to be held to.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, per instance, hold on, let Clay waste half the episode sneezing.
It's going to be twice. It's good.
Yeah, we'll see. Talk about being sick. Right? At least I didn't waste a Cartel episode.
Did you forget what you're talking about?
Don't do drugs because you'll lose your job. You know, that's a standard a lot of people can see and follow. Not everybody, but a lot of people can. Don't drink and drive. That's a standard a lot of people can follow. Not everybody, but a lot of people can. Well, we didn't have to hold ourselves to this standard. We made a decision not just to hold ourselves to this standard, but to pay a significant fee to have no guarantee, but just the opportunity to hold ourselves to this standard. I think that speaks volumes. And so, you know, a lot of times people look at who's doing what, but to me, the why matters more than the what, because I'm not near as impressed with somebody who does things because they have to, you know?
Yeah, and just kind of another side of that is this: when we first started doing all this and everything, and doing the IOP and everything, we were told that we were going to have to do the car for accreditation, and we kind of bucked it and was like, well, you know, I mean, maybe we do, maybe we don't. We'll just cross that bridge. And, you know, other people are like, no, you're going to have to do it. Well, then we found out that we didn't have to do it, and that we, you know, wasn't going to be forced to do it. And then we still decided to do it anyhow. You know what I'm saying? And so I think like the whole process of processing that out and finding the ways around it, but then ultimately decide, no, this is the direction that we need to go. I love process, man. You know, like I said, it wasn't our first idea. But then once we found the way around it, then we're like, no, we'll just go ahead and do it. And we did it. And then really started working on it. And if we're going to do it, we're going to do it well, and we're going to knock it out of the park. And so I just enjoy that thought process. You know, we can talk about end results, but how did it start? You know, how did it manifest? How, you know, what kicked it off? What was the trigger? What was the momentum behind it? What was the mindset? I like all those things. I love the process of watching how things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's been an interesting little ride maneuvering through it, but it's been something I think that not only have we grown from, I think that we've gotten better. Yeah. And I think that actually is going to tie in a little bit later with some of the stuff that we talk about. But before we get into all that, let's get into this get to know you segment question. You've had all this time to prepare for, man. What is either the greatest or some of the greatest sports movies of all time from your experience?
You know, if you were to name them, then I would probably give you a rating 1 to 10 or 0 to 5 stars, I guess is the movie thing. But just off of the top of my head, trying to remember, you know, I like the ones that are lighthearted but have some seriousness to them. You know, I like the ones that are like the drama and all that. The total package. And so the first thing that comes to my mind is Friday Night Lights. You know, man, solid cast of characters. We're introduced to a lot of different personalities, a lot of different characters. I think it's based off of a true story that happened in Texas, you know, and everything. And I know they did a spinoff on a TV show I didn't watch. And there's parts of this movie that I probably wouldn't have watched after I gave my life to the Lord and stuff. I think sometimes they show it on regular TV, so they knock a lot of stuff out. That's cool. I'm good with that. Probably hope that my kids never watch the movie. But to me, it just had everything that you would look for in a movie.
I hadn't seen the movie Friday Night Lights in a really long time. No, I've seen the
Oh,
movie.
okay.
I just hadn't seen it in a long time. I don't remember it being distasteful. Maybe it was in some areas, but I don't remember it that way for sure. But there's a line from that movie that
I'm thinking of a line too. You go ahead. It's not going to be the same one.
I would be very surprised if it was.
It's not. Mine is things change, Mox.
Yeah, okay,
That's my line.
That's not it. No, my favorite line from that
You're the
movie
quarterback now.
is and he can pass. I think it's the grandfather of the famous running back. His name was Boobie Miles, and he's just running over everybody and blowing people all down the field. And then they do a flea flicker to him, and he throws his spin, and he can pass. And so that's a line that some of my buddies will say sometimes when they see somebody do something that's not their normal skill set. You'll just, and he can pass.
There you go.
And so, that was a good movie. The series actually was really excellently done.
I never watched it.
Yeah, it was very, very good. I think it was Clear Eyes, Full Hearts, Can't Lose. I think that was like the main thing that the coach used to say to the players, and it was a good series. Solid pick.
Yeah, that's good.
Solid pick.
You might come up with one that I say is better than that. I said, that's the first one that comes to my mind.
But I think that was a very respectable pick. Yeah. I could see how that would. Yeah, I expected to insult your pick.
Oh,
that was my expectation.
I thought I was going to go with like the Rock movie or whatever it was, something like that. Some kind of football.
Like Gridiron Gang or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, that would have been awful. Yeah, I would have roasted you for that real good. No, man, there are so many good sports movies through the years. It'd be hard for me to just pick one. I will, but it's difficult. You got to understand that sports was kind of my love language as a kid. So we didn't really do a lot of affection and stuff like that. We spent time together playing sports, and so I particularly connect to sports movies and things like that, because there's usually like father-son relationships and stuff like that mirror in a lot of ways the relationship I had with my dad, and so you get to see a lot of the good, some of the bad. And some of them don't relate to me at all, but just because of the dynamic, I can kind of put myself in that place and be like, well, what if my dad would have been like that? You know what I mean? And so it's interesting to see. And so there's all kind of sports movies growing up that, really had a hold on me. And then, some when you're younger, I loved The Sandlot growing up.
I was going to say, is Sandlot your favorite movie?
Sandlot
that was
a great
my
movie.
guess for you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't my favorite. My favorite movie as a kid growing up was Angels in the Outfield.
Yeah.
I loved Angels in the Outfield. It had a really, really rich storyline to it. It was very, very funny. I love baseball in general. It had the professional teams in it. A lot of the old sports movies didn't have professional teams. They were kind of like these weird knockoff leagues and stuff. But it had the pro teams in it, and so you got to enjoy that, and the story was good. Mm-hmm. It's not always the case in sports movies. A lot of times they do the sport part well, but the story kind of sucks. And but that one's really good. So growing up, Angels in the Outfield was my favorite movie by far. But then, still as a kid, but movies that I appreciate more as I age, movies like Remember the Titans. Remember the Titans is an excellent movie.
So the two movies I had picked out for you were Remember the Titans and Sandlot.
Yeah, Remember the Titans is an excellent movie. It also was the first movie that made me embrace the reality of death as a child, so that was very difficult for me. But the movie itself was awesome. But then you get older and, sports comedies really kind of became more of a forefront. You got things like The Longest Yard, which is a remake of an older movie.
Major League.
Major League's an excellent movie. And so, yeah, I kind of grew up around them. And then you've got some that like Bull Durham's and some more serious ones like For the Love of the Game. Sports movies is a lot of why I fell in love with Kevin Costner as an actor, because who did sports movies better than Kevin Costner? not to mention, I'm pretty sure Kevin Costner played minor league baseball himself. And then, to be in Bull Durham, For the Love of the Game, Field of Dreams, all these different movies. He's probably the greatest American ever to live. I could make the argument. If I couldn't win the argument, I could definitely make it. And so, yeah, man, there's a rich history of
So what's the
newer
newer movie
movies
that's out based off of the draft and everything? Oh, is it Moneyball?
Oh
Is
yeah,
it-
that's actually you're getting old, brother.
Okay.
That movie's been out.
Well,
for
is
a
it that
long
one,
time.
or is it the one about where the guy's a GM and he's drafting people and he sells all his draft picks and then he gets them back and stuff like that? That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, we're not talking about
Moneyball
this
is baseball,
Yeah,
right?
the other one is football.
Yeah, this one's football, and it may be Kevin Costner.
Pretty sure it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it may
pretty sure
be.
it is.
And
Yeah,
I watched it.
I don't know the name of it, but it is Kevin Costner, and I do remember. I've seen the preview, but I hadn't got to watch it yet.
It's a good movie. I watched it flying to Africa one time. So it's only a couple years old, I think.
So I am a big time Moneyball fan because I'm an analytics guy. I pay very close attention to patterns and numbers. They matter to me. Coaching with Cody Maroney, he's the head baseball coach at FCCS. That's one of the fun things about coaching with Cody is that we both, I don't know how to explain it, we both approach the game a similar way overall, but we get there different ways. And so Cody's very passionate, very much, trust his gut, and he's got a lot of great instincts as a coach. Where I am more on the analytical side of things, like what statistically is going to give us the best, route to success. And most of the time we kind of end up in the same place, which makes us both super confident because we got such a different approach and are kind of in the same situation. And when we do have things that we I don't even want to say we disagree on, but just have different perspectives on, to be able to have that conversation and really like flesh all those details out. It's really easy with him, but that's where a lot of teams run into problems. Is you got a gut guy and an analytics guy waging war against each other because neither of them will actually listen because they're both so sure they're right.
Yeah.
And so it's been cool to get to be able to have those kind of conversations with a coach that has a little bit different perspective, but will listen, and you can have the conversation. And it's been a lot of fun, but it's the Moneyball era was a major thing for me. It's what turned the Red Sox organization around. It was my favorite baseball team. It was Theo Epstein actually coming in and rewiring the whole organization, basing it more off analytics. And he started picking up these random guys, and it actually sounded a lot like the beginning of the movie Major League, where they were like, who are all these guys? Yeah. Why are we picking these guys up? Well, it was because they were doing it based off of analytics, and then they end up, going on a pretty impressive run. And so, yep, I'm major into the analytics of things in all phases of life, not just in sports. I'm always once I'm successful, I want to know why I was successful. And when I fail, I want to know why I failed. And I'm going to try my best to repeat or not repeat any of those things that I come across. And so, yep, that's a few of my sports movies for sure. And then also, like, you can't leave out things like the Mighty Ducks and some of those staples that we grew up with as well. Those also have their special place in history. But if I got to go one, I'm going to Remember the Titans. That was just a fun movie. To storyline, it'd make you laugh, it'd make you cry, you'd want to beat your head against a wall and you want to celebrate. Yeah. And so
I can't argue with that.
Yeah, I'm going to Remember the Titans all in all.
I like it.
So last week we had an episode where I kind of just took us off into left field, man, and it was a total surprise to you. We didn't discuss it at all before. Which, if you're new to the Jesus Cartel, we never discuss it more than 5 minutes before. But a lot of times before the episode, you'll say, hey, what's this episode going to be on? And I'll say this. So it gives you about 5 minutes to think about kind of how you're going to. But I didn't even give you 5 minutes last time. Right. I said, hey, I've been reading a book. Well, we're going to talk about it. And you were like, okay. And so I just kind of went into it. And it was a book called The 6 Types of Working Genius. And, just kind of analyze some different things about ourselves. and just about how people work and correspond to work, and some things that go well for them, some of the things they're confident in, and some of the things that frustrate them. And so I just kind of hijacked the episode and walked you through some of that stuff that you'd never heard before. And we ended up in a pretty cool place. A lot of people had some diverse opinions on where they fall in those 6 categories. Have you had some responses to that?
Yeah, man, all week people, told me kind of where they fall and what they are. And, first time, Monday, I mean, I've had everything go on since we did that. It's been almost a week since we filmed that episode at that time. And, guy just walks up to me and goes, "Hey, I'm an enabler." I was like, "Well, don't do that." And then I realized what he was talking about, because we refer to it a little different, you know, in the drug and alcohol world. So
enabling is a horrible thing in the drug and alcohol world.
That's right.
Yeah.
So and so all week people have done that, and I just told them, I said, "Hey, look, we talked about." I said it was challenging for me because we're talking about a book that I've never read, using jargon that I've never used, talking about concepts we haven't talked about, and so. For me, it was a challenge. I thought it come off pretty good, and everybody seemed to enjoy it. So, hey, I dig it. I like it.
Yeah. And so for this week, I kind of wanted to, volley it back to you and give you the opportunity to take me on a path that I'm not prepared for and I haven't looked into. And it sounded like you had something. And
well, sometimes I substitute teach into our job readiness class, and for a while there. I pulled up a list of 10 tips to help with time management. So each time I went in, I would just start at the top of that list and, work my way down. It took about, 5 sessions or whatever, and all they were one-liners, and so those 10 sentences took about 5 45-minute sessions to get through. So I needed to start a new topic, and I wanted to talk about being successful. And so I just Googled tips for being successful. And so printed them out one morning about 6:30, and then went in there at 6:35 to teach the class. And so I've taught it, but so we probably just go through some of those things. But I found it quite interesting because I've seen lots of lists like this. I was really kind of looking for the list of like the 10 things that anybody can do, like to show up on time, that, be there, your best quality is your availability or whatever, that's kind of what I was looking for. But what I found was a completely different list. And here's what made it unique, and I still haven't read through. Basically, I've just went in there twice, and I've started with number 1, and I've gone from there. So I don't know what the whole list looks like. It's like 10, 12 of them, but I haven't been through them. But the very first one, and I actually got it with me, and I want to read what it said. It says, 10 tips to become successful and to achieve your life goals. And this was written, on January the 28th, 2025. So, it's current. But so just, tips to be successful and achieve your goals. But the very first one is something that we usually see further back in the list. And I think this author got it right. So the very first tip that that this person had for us is to be committed. Man, I think that so many times we put commitment further back there, but I really think that it should be on top of the list.
So define that for me, if you don't mind.
Well, and I was going to ask you to do the same thing, but basically it's saying that, or they're not saying, what I get out of it is the ceiling of how successful you can be is in direct correspondence with the commitment level that you have for attaining those goals. So this is tips to be successful, and they're saying that commitment is number 1.
Yeah. Because
it doesn't matter how great you are, it doesn't matter, if you're not committed to it, then it's not going to happen. You're perfectly capable of drinking that entire mini Mountain Dew.
Sure.
But if that's not your goal, if you're not committed to it, if somebody walks in with a different, with a Sprite or whatever, and you push it to the side, then it doesn't happen, right? And so that was the very first one. And they don't give you much. They basically just write it down. All they put here is staying focused on your plan is crucial. Put at least 15 minutes daily into thinking about your plan. That's all they wrote. So we're just going off of the title, and the title was Be Committed. But I really think that it's important that it's number one. And I think that the correlation there is that ever how committed you are, that's the ceiling, direct response or direct correlation to how successful you can be, or if you can even accomplish this goal at all. What do you think?
So we talked about this somewhere in the last 4 or 5 episodes. We got into this particular thing that I'm about to say is don't lie to yourself. There are too many people who their struggle isn't with commitment. The struggle is they would never plan to commit to begin with. And so they accepted a task that they never intended to finish. And so failure was absolutely inevitable for this person because they never intended to finish it to begin with. But they told themselves that somehow that it's gonna be a reality. And it's like things don't just materialize out of thin air. You know, I'd love to win the lottery. I also don't play the lottery. Right. It would be absurd of me to think that somehow this is going to happen for me. I don't do the thing necessary to win the lottery, which is play the lottery.
Right.
And there's so many times.
The one thing you need to do.
Yeah, there's so many times in life where, you know, to be successful in an area, there's a handful of things that have to be done. You already know you're not going to do them. You know you're not going to do them. So be honest with yourself. And if you're honest with yourself, maybe you can do something about it. But too many of us think that, and it goes back to an old saying. It's like nobody rises to the occasion. They fall back to their level of training. That's what everybody's going to do. Everybody thinks that, you know, if a guy shows up with a gun, that you're going to start picking up knives and throwing knives with pinpoint accuracy. And
so you got these skills you never had.
It's that's not going to happen. You're going to fall back to your level of training. Now, bravery and boldness, that can come in a moment like that, but skill does not. You do not achieve skill in a moment of adrenaline. You may achieve boldness and bravery that you didn't have before, but not skill. And but people look at life like skill is going to magically fall into their lap, or discipline is going to magically fall into their lap, and they're not. You've got to embrace the reality of who you are at the current stage that you're in for you to make any real changes. And so, you know, if I said I'd like to climb Mount Everest, right? Well, there are several issues with that. One, I hate the cold. I would have to find a way to get acclimated to the cold, or go through a lengthy period of trial for different types of equipment that would keep me warm, or methods of keeping me warm. That would be one of the more challenging things for me to figure out, was how to stay warm enough to not quit and turn around. Two, we're talking about massive elevation. Like one that my cardiovascular system is not prepared to take on. I would have to do a massive amount of elevation training to prepare for this. Now, do I know that within me lies the challenging mindset to accomplish a goal that daunting? I know I do. I know I've got the grit within me to accept a challenge that hard and complete it. But not that challenge. Not that challenge. Maybe something equally difficult that falls within the skill set I already possess, sure. But I can't lie to myself. It would be really ignorant for me on a whim to say, hey, I could go climb Mount Everest tomorrow. That would be so dumb. Just because I've got the grit to do something difficult doesn't mean I have the skill to do that difficult thing. And so now, because I'm honest, I can confront this reality and decide whether or not that task is worth me putting in the effort that it's going to take, because now I know my two primary obstacles, and there are many more, but that's two primary that I got to defeat before I can even consider secondary obstacles. And I can tell you, I have no interest. I have no interest because I'm honest. I don't want to go do elevation training. I don't want to try to adapt to cold weather right now. Those are not things that I find necessary for me. And so I'm not going to do them. So I'm not going to Mount Everest. I'm not going to try to accomplish this thing, all because I'm honest. Now, if I'm not honest with myself, I will waste a lot of time. I'll probably do a lot of training unnecessarily because I'm not going to be prepped for the cold weather.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to be prepped for the elevation, all just to say that I gave it a shot. You know, I tried to climb Mount Everest one time, and it's ignorant, man.
But you
And
never
so-
were committed.
No, not at all. And so that's kind of where I am with commitment. It's like the first thing is if you're going to decide whether or not you're going to commit to something, just be honest about it.
Yeah.
Be honest about it. Look at yourself. Look at whether or not you can even, like, what would you actually have to do to follow through? Figure that out. Write those things down. See if you possess those skills. And if you don't, see if you're actually willing to acquire them before you get started.
Yeah.
You know? That's kind of my take on
All
commitment.
right, so I got a question on that.
Okay.
So this is completely different, but it's on commitment. At what point do you decide whether or not you want to bring other people into your plan? Meaning, at what point do you decide if you want accountability or not? What point, do you go to friends and say, hey, I've made this decision. I want y'all to help me keep my commitments. I want you to help hold me accountable. Because I know you don't tell everybody everything that you're doing or whatever, but so what does that thought process look like?
For me, it's immediately after I decided I'm going to pursue it.
Okay. Whatever it is.
Yeah, and so there's a reason for that. So, God, time's running together for me. Maybe like 2 years ago, I ran an ultra marathon, and I considered. Yeah, I knew it was going to be a difficult task. It'd be 30 plus miles of rugged terrain, like 9,000 feet elevation change. You know, not near Mount Everest, but something. It's not nothing. But it's going to be warm. Want to make that clear for everybody. I considered it. I knew I was willing to put in the time. I knew I couldn't train properly for the elevation, but I didn't think the elevation was severe enough that overtraining at our current elevation wouldn't make up for that. And I have ran a marathon before, and so we were only talking about a few extra miles, maybe 10 more miles, and the time limit was pretty substantial, and so I felt like I had plenty enough window to accomplish it. It was just a matter of could I remain injury-free during the process of the race itself. So as soon as I'd considered all those primary obstacles, then I went into the secondary obstacles, which hydration and things like that would play a additional factor. Hydration, what shoes you're going to wear, things that could set me aside that wouldn't be easy to see from the front. Once I'd considered all of those and recognized that I either possessed the skills or was willing to possess the skills before start date, I immediately told everybody that mattered to me.
So as soon as you processed it and committed to it in your mind, then you went ahead and told everybody.
Yeah, and that works for me. It doesn't work for everybody, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna say maybe. Here's the reason it works for me. I was talking to the guys about it this morning, and it's a common topic of mine because my integrity matters to me. And if I say I'm gonna do something, I have to do it at that point. It would take something astronomical for me not to do something I said I was going to do. Something that there is not a single person who would second guess me or question me. It would take something that serious to pull me off of a task. But if I thought even one person would think I just gave up, I'll do it. As a matter of fact, I was injured. I was pretty severely injured going into the race, and I ran it anyways. And so, it just is what it is. And because that wasn't a significant enough injury for me not to run it. You know, it wasn't worth it. I felt like it would have compromised my integrity, and people would have saw me as a quitter. And so I do that to hold myself accountable, because the things that I'm trying to accomplish in life, I'll just be honest with you, and I mean, that's just a race. It's silly, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, but it mattered to me. But the things I try to accomplish in life are not easy things. I don't need accountability to pay my bills. You know, like, I'm well beyond that part of my life. And as we grow and mature as adults, I think that should be the case for everyone. You know, as you grow and mature, taking care of the obvious things you shouldn't need a bunch of accountability for. Right. It should just be things that you do. So the things that I'm trying to accomplish in life are extremely difficult. Like, the goals that I set for myself are not easily attainable. And so it requires accountability to keep me on pace. Had I not, from the beginning, before I started training, had I not said to everyone who mattered to me that I'm for sure going to do this, I would have quit.
Yeah.
100%, especially when I hurt my knee real bad.
Well, and so I guess that's kind of where I was going with the question is that if you look at all the details, and if you make a decision that this is what I'm going to commit to, and then you don't tell anybody, you're not really reaffirming your commitment.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a lot easier to lie to yourself than it is to lie to other people. You know, so that's the reason why I was asking, you know, is it important to tell other people, and why?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that when we do set goals and do those things, letting people know just reaffirms our commitment to ourselves.
That's right.
And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a lot easier to let yourself down than it is to let somebody else down. Well, I didn't really mean I was going to do that. I mean, I was going to try to do that, you know. And but I got hurt, and so it's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're going to see people over the next 6 months, it's going to ask you, "Hey, Andrew, how did that race go?" And you don't want to have to say, "Man, I backed out."
Yeah.
For a year or 6 months or whatever, you know. So I just found that interesting, you know, that if you do say that you're committed to something, if you are committed to something, you know, I mean, we're private people in some ways, and then we live our life out in the public in other ways, you know. It's not all about, our goals aren't always, you know, running a marathon. It could be a lot smaller than that. But I think that even if they are smaller than that, just by speaking them out to people and stuff is important.
Yeah.
You know, we did some teaching on goals, I think, in Jesus Cartel, and since then a couple of people sent me their goals and stuff. Well, that was them solidifying that. You know, now those people that have done that, I've checked in with them all.
Yeah.
Hey, give me an update, you know, where we are. And I think for them, that just reaffirms their commitment, just because they know I'm going to ask, because I have.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
So I think that all works together.
Yeah, a lot of people look at me, and not because I'm special. Not that I don't mean this in any way, but just because I have accomplished some notable things in the physical world in terms of physical performance. I've accomplished some notable things. So a lot of people look at me and be like, "Man, that guy ain't got no quit in him," and that's not true. I absolutely have quit in me. But if I put accountability in the right places, I won't quit because of that accountability. It's not that I don't want to quit. There was absolutely a lot of want to quit when I was doing the ultra marathon training. Now, once you get to race day, it's race day. There's no quit there. Right. You know, that part's a whole.
But you were also hurt leading up to it.
Yeah, and I you know, when the training is painful and you're hurt too bad to train properly, and now you know you're going to go into a race not trained properly to finish, that you still have to finish, yes, it wears on your mind, you know, because I know, like, I haven't been running far enough for this race to be easy for me. But if I run any further than I'm running, I'm going to be more injured going into the race than I currently am. So trying to find the balance there was very hard. And so, you know, what it ended up being for me was about 30 miles a week, was about the most load my knee could handle. And so that's what I did, about 30 miles a week. And mind you, I'm about to run 35 miles in a day through not flat terrain that I'm training on, but through extremely rugged terrain.
Right.
And so the math don't math real well in your mind, but it's all I had.
Yeah.
It's all I had. And so everything in me wanted to say, hey, look, man, you gave it a run. You got an injury. Just fold your hand here. But I couldn't because I knew deep down I'm not that injured.
Yeah.
I'm injured enough that if I want to quit, I can quit. But I'm not so injured I actually can't complete this task. And I knew that. And there was a part of me that knew that. And because of the accountability and because I'm honest with myself, and I know that even though I'm hurt, I'm not so hurt I can't do it. I just did it, But accountability is the sole reason that I was able to continue doing that, because I wanted the next time I told my friends I was going to do something, I wanted them to believe me. And if I back out here, this is forever in question. Anything I say I'm going to accomplish in the future is a question mark, and I can't afford that. And let me sum up way too long of my life in just a couple of sentences. When I spiraled out of control in my life, I lost 100% of my integrity. Nobody believed anything that I had to say, and they shouldn't have. I was a liar and a manipulator. When I built my integrity back, I made a decision that I was never going to compromise it again. So even through something so insignificant as a race, it matters to me.
Amen.
It matters to me.
There's a little story here, and I don't know the exact numbers. We're gonna make them up, but get pretty close. But when I was just finished my junior year in college, I went to college majoring in music, and then got burned out after a couple of years. Had swapped my major, and then so I wasn't majoring in music. And that summer I was gonna stay and go to college and kind of catch up a little bit, and from some changing majors and stuff like that. And I went to school here at Winsboro High School, and they called me and said, hey, we need a band director. We want you to come be the band director. So, well, hey, I'm not majoring in music anymore. I still got another year of college. And they said, well, look, if you're not going to be the band director, then we're going to, we're going to have to shut the program down. Well, this is a program my dad played in, all my dad's best friends played in, my cousins played in, I played in, and it meant a lot to me. I was the drum major my senior year, and so I decided to leave college for a year and come be the full-time band director at Winsboro High School, and was still taking a couple college classes. Well, anyhow, we ended up having a very successful marching season. I mean, we took nothing and made it into something. We had fun with the kids. We were, the band had used to be like a military type band. We made it a little bit more fun, and just had a good time. And we got invited to go march in the Mardi Gras parades in Metairie, Louisiana. And, man, really big honor, to be able to go do that and stuff. And, we'd done some cool stuff that people had seen and everything. And so, hey, we took it on, and asked the kids, and they wanted to do it. I'm 21 years old at the time, and we get ready to do it. Well, so we start practicing, because now this, it's Mardi Gras time in February. So we were practicing and marching good in September and October, November, but now, our team was terrible, so we wasn't in the playoffs. And so we haven't done this since November. Well, now we're trying to get ready. It's cold outside, and everything. And so we start practicing and we start marching. And, we'd march for, 15, 20 minutes, and then the kids would start complaining, And then we got it to where we're marching for 30 minutes, and their bunions are hurting, and different things. It's difficult, and we don't have a military band. We got a bunch of just different people, and everything. But the Mardi Gras parade was somewhere, and I forget, but I think it was right at 12 miles long. So every time, they wanted to go, they wanted the trip. But every time we got ready to march, I think the furthest we ever got was about 2 miles.
Ooh.
Maybe 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
And
It's a
then
far cry from 12.
then they're just tired and worn out and don't want to do it no more.
Yeah.
You know, and well, I wasn't as strong minded as I am now, and I was like, well, you're going to find out, you know, and everything, and so you know, those numbers might not be, but they were close. You know, we were somewhere doing about 15 to 20%. You know, but just felt like that. Hey, when we get out there and the crowd's out there, the adrenaline's going to, you know, kick in, and we're going to be able to do better than what we have. And to some degree, that's not wrong, you know, but not nearly as what we were thinking, you know. It's like you said, you fall back to your training, you know.
Yeah.
And so we get out there, and man, I saw those kids, some of them rise to the occasion, and I saw some of them fall flat. You know, a lot of it had to do with who they were as a person, their training. It did not have to do with our training. We didn't put in the training.
Sure.
It had to do with the individual kids and where they were. But just to line up and with everything, because, I mean, we were a bunch of kids from Winsboro. We've never been to New Orleans and Metairie to Mardi Gras parades and stuff. Just to get to where the starting line actually was probably 2 miles. You know, so by the time our kids are pretty worn out
That's awesome.
and complaining and having a difficult time, it was really where it starts. It's just the line so big that you start back here.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you know, you start, stop, and then finally, when it's time to start really going, that's the starting line.
Yeah.
And our people were pretty devastated. Not all of them, but several of them. And so you got to remember, we're wearing tubas across our necks. We're wearing drums and harnesses. You know, not everybody's a flute player.
What's the heaviest? Is a tuba the heaviest, or is the drum heavier?
So the tuba is heavy as far as the weight, but it goes on your shoulders and all that. The drum is heavy
front.
because the drum's out front and it's the harness on your shoulders, but then it's holding here. So it's not just the shoulders, it's the core. You know, and so your core, when you're playing the bass drum or the quads or whatever,
How
is
is that
difficult.
on your lower back, that drum?
So it's very difficult.
So just from picturing the way the weight is getting, I've never carried a drum, obviously.
With a harness
But
on,
just
right.
I think of it like an Atlas stone that you have to hold out here, and they can be very lower back intensive because of the posture you have to force.
That's right. And so, and then the more tired you get, the worse your posture is.
That's right.
So everybody who could possibly play drums in this 12-mile deal. Because everybody's tired, and so I mean, you know,
rotate out.
Me as a director, I played drums. Jerry Scriber was over the drum line. He's playing drums, you know, probably over half of the time, giving somebody a break. He might have played the whole time, you know, giving somebody a break. And so, from the cymbals to the snares, and I'm saying drums because the drum had to play the whole time. The band only played when the band wanted to play. When everybody could catch their breath enough, that's when we would play. But the drum line is playing a cadence the entire time. Well, I didn't understand these things, you know, and I'm the leader. And I didn't have a lot of discipline in my life. I didn't know about accountability. I didn't know about these things. And so looking back at it now, man, we wouldn't do that at all. Because I don't think you could get kids to commit to that. But if you did agree to do it, we would definitely have to have a regiment and everything. Now, we did get an award at the end of it for best band directors and stuff because we put on a show the best we could and did a great job. But it was excruciating and it was difficult. And it was something that taught me a whole lot about goals and how to obtain them and commitment, but more than anything, it taught me what you said at the very beginning, to not lie to myself. You know, because that can cause you all kinds of problems.
That's right.
And not only did it cause me problems, but it caused everybody that I led problems because I lied to myself thinking that even though these kids aren't committed to practicing it, that they will rise to the occasion come game day. And it wasn't that they didn't want to. It was that they physically were unable to.
Yep.
And not all of them, but a good amount of them were just physically not able to complete the task because they didn't have the proper training.
So let me ask you this. And I'm not talking about going back in time to that moment again. I'm saying let's put you in the exact same scenario, but today. How do you handle it different?
And I can tell you, first off, kids are soft today. They're soft, they're not very committed, and they're difficult to motivate. I don't even know if I would try it. At 48 years old, Dylan, I've been coaching, all since my kids were. I don't know that, man. We would have to have some really good talks.
Yeah.
And I would have to feel really strong about that group of kids. But I think it's too much, to be honest, because of where they are, because of their mindsets, because of what they're used to. Kids today are totally different than it was, in 97, 98 when this was. And that's 30 years ago almost. The mentality of children, the physical aspects of kids today are difficult, Now, I think that I could take some 7-on-7 football kids and go do something, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the band.
Yeah.
We're talking about some bigger kids that choose to play tuba. We're talking about some kids that aren't the athletes, or because if they were, they would be, playing the sports, and stuff. And not saying that we didn't have some, but we didn't have enough. And so I don't even know that I would try to take on that.
It's the same with the sports kids, though. And this is not an insult to the boys or the kids. It's just a different generation with different distractions and different things going on that I didn't have to deal with, and you and I are in different generations. I had to deal with some things you didn't have to deal with, and vice versa as well. The baseball guys, I do off-season workouts with our baseball guys who our baseball team's 10-1 right now, and of those 10 wins, we've 10 run like 8 of those. We got an excellent baseball team. When I tell you, it did not take much running for me to put those guys down. I'm not making fun of them, but like in their mind, I was some sort of running wizard, and it's like, dude, I'm a decent runner. I'm not a great runner, and they couldn't keep up with me in any version of distance running. And when I was the me in high school would run circles around the me now. That's not like an estimation. I have my numbers from what I used to run my miles and 3 miles and 5 miles in from back then, and I was much faster then than I am now. And I didn't train. I just played ball every day. Baseball, basketball, it's just what we did. It's how we hung out back then. Kids don't hang out like that nowadays. I don't hear about kids playing pickup basketball every day.
Right.
That's what we did every single day. We would leave whatever sport we were playing, and we would go play pickup basketball. That includes leaving basketball practice. We would leave basketball practice, go play pickup basketball until we were all forced inside by our parents. And so we ran all day. All day. And so it builds, you kind of get callous to the effort level of it all. And kids will occasionally play ball and stuff like that now, but not like we used to, and certainly not like the generations before.
How many kids do you see now riding bicycles?
None.
Very few. That is not a number one thing. And when I was, 12, 13, 14 years old, we would leave in the morning time. I was living in town. We would leave in the morning time on a bicycle and wouldn't come back until we were forced to. And then once our parents got home, then we all conjugated at somebody's house and played pickup basketball, and that's what we did. And so much so that we're playing barefoot on concrete and not getting blisters because we played every single day. And so things were just a lot different.
Sure.
But how are we on time? How are we looking?
Yeah, we're getting
close.
We're getting close.
All right, let's do this because I don't want everybody to think that we're referring everything to sports. let's kind of turn it a little bit, because we are giving keys to being successful. And let's talk for just a minute about being successful in another part of life, whether it's our job or our Christian walk or whatever. How, in your job or in your Christian walk, if you want to hit the next level or whatever, how big a deal is commitment there? How big a deal is letting people know that you're committed to that?
Yeah. Man, it's a huge ordeal. And the thing that has been most valuable to me about work and committing to work is committing myself to increasing my level of skill. That's been what has paid the most dividends to me over the years. And so let's say, for instance, our finance guy, he just starts doing a really bad job for whatever reason. And I see it, it's notable. When somebody's doing a really bad job, everybody can see it. Those kind of things aren't hidden. Let's say he starts doing a really bad job. I would probably, first thing I would do is see if I could do his job. Before he was ever let go, I would figure out what goes into it, see what skills it takes to maneuver that job, and I'd start practicing them, because that would be a promotion for me. And if it came to where he continued to decline and finally quit or got fired or whatever, my hope would be that I was prepared to step into that role by the time that he was gone. And maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Maybe when I analyze the skill set, which, our finance guy, I could never do what our finance guy does. And so it wouldn't take me long to recognize, like, this ain't This
Had to hire somebody for that one.
This ain't it. You know what I mean? This is well above. There's a reason that one gets paid more than me. That's well above my pay grade, you know. But that's not the case with every position. You know, most of the things that I've learned to do in life, I've learned because of opportunity I saw potentially coming. You know, I became a marketer. I became a director of facilities. I've had several management positions and administrative positions in different companies and things like that, all because I saw opportunity and took advantage of learning. I'm always trying to learn from everybody. That's not just from people who are doing a bad job. Like, you know, I'll ask Brad about some of the stuff that he does. I ask Danny about the stuff that he does all the time, and I'm constantly gauging whether or not I have the skills or not to do those jobs. Because, and it's not because I ever want Brad or Danny to leave. I love Brad and Danny. I hope they stay. I hope they're at Fresh Start long after I am. But let's say Brad or Danny gets tired of Fresh Start. You know what I mean? Well, it'd be way better for me or someone who's close to us, who's been a part of our team for a long time, to be able to pick something up that's difficult because their jobs are very important at Fresh Start, than us to hire a stranger to step into such an important role. And so I'm constantly assessing skills around me and seeing whether or not I have those skills. And if I don't, I make a decision on whether or not I want to commit to learning that skill. And most of the time, the answer is yes. You know, there's some things I don't mess with, finances being one of those. I'm not going to be an accountant. It's not that I couldn't do it. I don't enjoy it enough to force myself to learn it. And but a lot of other things I do. And so, yeah, you got to be committed to your own growth. And most people are only committed to growth once the opportunity has presented itself. And it's too late.
They don't want to waste their time.
Well, it's too late at that point.
Yeah,
and so once the marketing position opens, you can't say, hey, I'd like to learn
6
marketing.
months from now, I could be good at that.
When the marketing job opened at the company I was at, where I first became a lead marketer, when the marketing job opened, my response to my employer was, hey, I know how to do marketing. It wasn't, I can learn how to do marketing. Mm-hmm. I would have never had an opportunity if I said, hey, let me learn. I said, hey, I can do this already. Mm-hmm. I had already accumulated the skills necessary. I knew what went into it. I looked at every nook and cranny of the job, had built that skill set way ahead of time, and when the opportunity opened, immediately walked into a significant pay raise, a different job. And so, yeah, you commitment is huge, but what are you committing yourself to?
Right.
Not
you
just
gotta be strategic.
Yeah, not just doing your own job excellent, which has to be always taken care of. So when I'm learning how to do marketing, if I fail at what I was actually hired to do, well, I'll still fail. And so you still have to do your original job excellent, and then you have to put your extra time into building this skill set. And it's all a strategic move in hopes that, it could pay dividends in the long run. Never, go ahead.
Go ahead. And if it does, it does. If it don't, it don't. You still learn a new skill.
Well, that's what I was about.
Right.
It's exactly what I was about to say. It's not because I'm hoping for the downfall of people
Right.
above or around me. One, I'm looking to see if that's even on the table, because when those things are coming. Like I said, they're obvious. When somebody doesn't want to do their job, it's very obvious. When there's tension between an employee and an employer, and you can tell one or two is about to go, it's obvious to everybody in the room. So you decide whether or not you want to build a skill set to have an opportunity at that job. Now, if that never happens, I've still learned a skill set, and I've now done marketing at a different job that didn't come about that way, right? Because I'd built the skill somewhere else. And so by the time I got to the next job, I could write code. I didn't know how to write code when I got to the job before that, but it was involved in marketing. And so I learned how to write a little bit of code. I'm not an expert at it, but I knew enough to get me by, and I knew enough to get into a website that people have been trying to get into for years and couldn't get into. And then I got into it in 2 days. And so it's all relative, but yes, it requires honesty, it requires commitment, and you'd be surprised how much more successful everybody listening could be if they would just approach their life a little more strategically. But most people don't. Most people wait for things to just happen to them, and life just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, so we're talking about how people bow out of things because they're not really committed, because a lot of times they lie to themselves. They wasn't really ever committed anyhow. But then you're taking it to the next level and saying, not only am I committed to what I'm doing, but I'm also committed to put myself in the best position possible to continue to succeed in life.
That's right.
And man, I love it. So many people are like, why would I waste my time on something that may or may not happen? And but if God's put it on your heart, if those are things, then you better get ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not prepared and you're not going to get ready for it, He'll put somebody else there who will.
Yeah. I completely
agree.
agree.
That's good stuff. Hey, we did pretty good on that, didn't we?
Yeah, I feel good about it. I enjoyed this episode a lot. Yeah.
I will say this, just in closing. One thing that we hadn't said, and the one thing that we have said is, if you're not going to fully commit to whatever it is, then don't say it and go do something else.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not just hurting you, but you're hurting everybody around you. So if you're not going to be honest with yourself, if you're not going to, count the costs, do the things, if you're not going to do that, then don't even act like that you committed to it, because then you're taking the job of somebody else that has thought about it, prayed about it, ready to go on it, and you're going to fail, and then that person may be gone already doing something else.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to commit to something, don't lie to yourself, don't lie to everybody else. Just get the heck out of the way and let the person that is going to commit to it do it. And then just remember, like we said at the beginning, that the ceiling of your success, as high up as being successful as you can, is in direct correlation to what your commitment level is and how committed you are. Because if you're not in it to win it, then you're not going to win it. You're not going to succeed. So
That's right.
there we go. Good episode.
Yep, I feel good.
See y'all next time.